Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. Talking about emotions, the avoidance of emotions is probably something that you may be familiar with, where you wake up in the morning and you already feel anxious and you already feel like, oh, there it is again. And in order to not have to feel this anxiety, you just get out of bed and get yourself busy. So you can distract yourself, you just keep yourself occupied, do everything and more that you should do and want to do. But at the end of the day, you have done everything. Everyone is fed and taken care of, and now you're sitting there in your chair, and there it comes up again. There you feel the emotion, and maybe you feel even a little depressed. Maybe you feel even a little bit, worn out, because this fighting of suppressing the emotion and not having to feel this anxiety ultimately is so exhausting. So what you do, maybe you just check out, veg out, self-medicate, take a drink, and in the end, you're avoiding how you're feeling because it just feels too much, too overwhelming, too forceful, and not something that you want to feel. Sounds familiar? Now, a lot of people feel this way. A lot of people say to me when they have anxiety, I just don't want to feel the anxiety. I just don't want to feel the anger or the sadness. And basically, it's like this idea that emotions are, especially those so-called negative emotions, are useless and that we just don't want to deal with them. And we overlook that emotions, even though they don't make sense and they are really powerful, we are ultimately the ones that are creating the emotion. We are the ones that in our minds have a reason for the emotions to be there. We are on a deeper level, constantly engaged in life in an emotional way. But the problem is that A, we have never been told how to listen, how to respond to our emotions, and B, we avoid them all the time. And so they are kind of having their life on their own. It's like where the subconscious plays such a big role, where the subconscious just does what it has learned over and over again. And the subconscious is ultimately the source of the emotions. And if we are not paying attention to those emotions, if we are avoiding especially the bad feelings, well, the subconscious doesn't get any guidance. It doesn't know what to do. So it just keeps churning along and does the same thing over and over again. And that's when we feel really disconnected. But if you have an emotion you don't like or you don't want to feel, and you want to run away from yourself, good luck, you can't. It will always catch up with you. The latest when you're in bed and you're feeling like, again, your head is spinning, the chest is tight, and all these emotions are coming back up. So I want to just tell you a few things you can do with your emotions, and also seeing them a little bit different than you may have in the past. So think about your emotions not as something that is, just useless energy, but think about it as something that actually has something to tell you. Emotion, well, imagine you hadn't an emotion. You would live without emotions. You probably would feel like pretty bland, and you would feel like, life has no meaning, no purpose. I mean, all the memories that really are sticking with us for a long time are memories that have an emotion connected to it. So no emotions means no real experience. Nothing really has any meaning. So emotions are precious. Emotions are important. Emotions is what gives us the sense of being alive. We just try sometimes to pick and choose which emotion we want and which we don't. And then we are not realizing that those emotions we don't want, because they are pretty forceful, they may actually have a meaning. There may be something about them. So try to listen to those emotions that are especially unpleasant, not as something that's wrong with you, you shouldn't have it, or something that's wrong with your world, and you feel like, oh my God, the emotion tells me my job is terrible, or the emotion tells me that I should leave my spouse, or I made a mistake having kids. The emotion is not a truth teller. The emotion just gives you some feedback. Often the emotion just is a distortion of your life. We all know that, right? So you have everything going for yourself, all is great, but then all of a sudden there is let's say, an anxiety bubbling up. Well, your day has changed completely. It's like this huge, fat, dark cloud hanging over the day and making you feel, somehow very, very uncomfortable. And maybe, looking over your shoulder for the next shoe to drop. And it's just the emotion. Nothing externally has changed. So when you look at the emotion, not something that you have to take at face value, but still something that is important to look at and pay attention to, then it doesn't appear so threatening anymore. So to get out of the avoidance, I would like you to, first of all, have an emotional inventory, meaning see your emotions or where they are coming from, almost like an interesting part of you that you haven't really paid attention to too much. It's like, if you all of a sudden had a third arm and you say, oh, wow, there is a third arm. I didn't even know what I can do with that. And then you're going to explore, and then you're going to find out what it's capable of. And that's the same with emotions. So take an emotional log, write down which emotions are coming up during the day, what situations were those emotions, and very importantly, what thoughts did you have when those emotions came up? And when you do this inventory, you're not getting stuck with one or the other emotion, because you realize emotions are a little bit like a keyboard of a piano, or of an organ. You can just see, like, yeah, there are all these different keys and they all sound different. And if you play them together, it can actually be pretty nice. It can be nice, harmonious. And emotions are a little bit like that. If you look only at one emotion, it may feel like, that's where you get really, attached to, because you don't like it or you feel like it should go away. And if you're seeing this, oh, right now I'm feeling a little down, but look, after lunch, I felt actually quite happy, or I felt excited, or I felt satisfied. And be unattached to the emotional expression, but see it more as something that happened throughout the day. So that's number one. Just take that inventory and realize my emotions are there, whether I'm paying attention to or not. And they are magnificent because they're so colorful and so many and so different in their expression. For that, you may also want to look at emotions, in a Google dictionary or so, because, sometimes we're saying anxiety, and then everything that feels similar, we are calling anxiety. But it can actually be excitement. It can be nervousness. It can be little concern. It can be worry. It can be anticipation. It can be a sense of feeling, that you are uncertain. Be just aware of that there are so many different ways emotions can show up. So when you give emotions different words and different names, you actually see also much more what may be behind the emotion, what actually it tries to tell you. And not everything feel anxious or sad or angry, because you're much more aware of the nuances. Now, when you have your emotions, as I said before, realize the subtitles. What thoughts do you have underneath them? And, when you, for example, wake up in the morning with anxiety and you're realizing, well, the anxiety is there again, what thought did you have with the anxiety? And maybe that thought that you had was, I was a complete failure today. I messed everything up. My kids don't like me. My spouse is not interested. I have no future. I am really ugly, and I'm gaining weight every day. There may be all those thoughts that you haven't really noticed, because all you paid attention to were these unwanted emotions. But when you see the thoughts, then you realize, whoa, This is actually something that is very self-rejection, very self-critical, and maybe it's not even true. Maybe I completely make an assumption that I am a bad mother or a bad father or a bad spouse and that I'm not attractive and all of those things. Maybe these are actually stories that come from way back and I just continue to tell them to myself. So once you have that understanding of what, especially those emotions you want to avoid, are maybe trying to tell you, then it's time for you to set the record straight and just say, okay, let's look at the day. What did I accomplish? Where was there failure? There was no failure. How many times did my kids tell me they love me? Wasn't there just my husband coming home, bringing me flowers? You know, when you really look then at reality versus that distorted version of reality, then you can also tell the emotion, I know this is how you used to feel. And I know that this is how you assume life is. But the reality is, it is completely different. And if you need help, ask the person that is the closest to you. Do you find that I'm a bad mother? Do you find that, I'm no longer attractive? Now, it's always a difficult question because, of course, there's only one possible answer. But really trusting that you also can lean into somebody else that has a much more objective and a much more realistic perspective on you, not that distorted perspective, can also help you to see, well, the emotion is just something that may have asked me a question. That's another really good thing to realize. Emotions don't tell you, as I said, the truth, but they ask questions. Do my kids love me? Am I a failure? Do I do everything wrong? Am I worthy? Do I belong? All of those questions. Then when you know, well, they are not telling me the truth, they just want to have reassurance, then you can reassure whatever part inside of you creates the emotion on a subconscious level with saying, no, people love me. I have done a wonderful job. I'm a good person. I'm always willing to grow. And just doing that is easing the emotion. And it will actually, unlike avoiding the emotion, it will make that emotion come up much, much less because finally you have been paid attention to. And in the end, when you don't pay attention to your emotions, you will never grow. You will never attend to the deep-seated wounds or confusions that are inside of you. And you certainly will miss out on a very important guidance system, a guidance system that leads you through life, helping you to find what's really right for you and what is your purpose and what brings you joy. Okay, another break, quick one, and we'll talk about the avoidance of yourself and how to also get out of that. So stay tuned. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.